I was like, I need to talk about this for 800 years. And I settled on about 8 years instead.
Yeah, because there's a higher chance that you'll live that long instead of 800.
Yes.
My name is KJ, and you're listening to the Supernatural Opinions podcast, where some things in this world are supernatural. My pronouns are she, they, and this is the podcast where I talk to my fellow Supernatural fans about Supernatural, and we share our Supernatural opinions.
This week, we're going to be looking back on season 2 and potentially looking ahead a bit to season 3. It's not a regular episode, but we are going to try and keep it spoiler free. Today, I'm being joined by my faithful companion, Meredith. Find out what you are.
Great. I'm Meredith. My pronouns are she and her, and I like peanut butter. I have like a jar of it beside me, and I thought it very inspiring.
I'm glad that you were inspired by peanut butter. It's worthy of inspiration.
It is, definitely. Unless you're allergic, but that's not what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah. Today, we are here to talk about season 2 because we're done season 2. Woo! This is our second time recording this episode. It's the first time we recorded it. We had some issues. We'll get into it. But before we actually get into it, let's talk about some stuff from season 2.
Oh boy.
I have a thing I wanted to go back to from season 1 that came up during the season 2 finale, and we didn't talk about it when we talked about 221, which was All Hell Breaks Loose Part 1, when we found out about the Sam, Demon Blood, Azazel, Special Children generations thing. We learned that there was more generations of Special Children, which wasn't a revelation because John had been tracking Azazel via Special Children creation.
That's what we're calling it. It works.
So with this, was John killing babies? Like, he said he failed to save any of the other families, and he thought that Dean might need to kill Sam. Was he killing the babies of anyone that he failed to save? Because I kind of think he might have been.
I wouldn't put it past him. I would love to think he wasn't, but it's John, and I think he would do it if he thought the child was a monster.
Yeah, that's horrible. But yeah, just a fact, John might have been out here killing children, like, hypocritically, because he wouldn't kill his own child. He made Dean promise to maybe do it. The other thing I wanted to touch on was a thing from season 2, episode 20, which was What Is and What Should Never Be, and that is the Jinn Dream World episode. Dean and Sam were not close in the Wishverse, and I didn't talk about this, but I think that part of Dean's ideal reality is that Sam is safe from Dean. Sam and Dean's close relationship is what draws Sam back into hunting. It's what has seemed to like activate all of these events in their lives, their dad dying and their issues with the yellow-eyed demon and all of that. So I do think that part of the reason why Dean's like Wishverse does not include that closeness with Sam is Dean like protecting Sam.
I guess part of it would be like Dean wishing that he himself didn't need Sam as much as he does.
That too.
Because like he wants to protect Sam, and he knows that being around him is very dangerous for Sam, but at the same time he still can't get rid of him.
Yeah, this is not something that we talked about. It's not even something I put in my notes, but I was listening to Monster of the Week's kind of season 2 recap, and they asked what they think that like Sam's Wishverse would have looked like. Like, okay, if say Sam made the same wish that Mary didn't die, what do you think that would look like? Like, what do you think their lives would be like?
I think in some ways it would resemble Dean's quite a bit. Like, he'd be with Jessica, he'd be going to school, and I don't know if John would be there, but I do think he and Dean would be a little closer though.
I agree. And that's kind of, I think, what made me want to ask that was because I think it does kind of like, I think that Sam does value their closeness. Not that Dean, obviously Dean does. Like, it's one of Dean's core like fundamental beings, but Sam sometimes like doesn't appear to value their closeness, but I think that like in his like Wishverse, like they would still be close.
Yeah, like it's a very, very sibling kind of thing. Like, I hate you, but also I love you and I want you to stay here.
Yeah, I don't think they would be as close as they are in like real timeline, but I do think that they would be closer than Dean's. And yeah, I agree. I think Sam's would be like very, very similar. What do you think that Sam would dream up for Dean? Like in Dean's Wishverse, he's like dreamed Sam up Jessica in law school and California and all of this. But like, what do you think Sam would dream up for Dean?
Not sure. I mean, how does he view Dean? He thinks that Dean is very intelligent and creative, so.
Do you think Carmen would be somebody more specific? Because Carmen is just an advertisement that Dean sees. She means nothing to Dean at the end of the day.
I don't know. Maybe she would be. Maybe she would be like Cassie or someone.
I guess, yeah, Cassie's like the only person that Sam's ever seen Dean like be in love with in any sense.
Yeah, because we haven't met Ben and Lisa yet at that point.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
But yeah, I just thought we could talk about that. I even though Dean did not go to work once, he was allegedly a mechanic in his dream world. And I think that is something that Sam would dream up for Dean. It is kind of like the base model of Dean Winchester living a normal life.
Yeah, because Dean works with his hands and he's very good at it.
Hang on, I'm opening AO3 and I'm just gonna search Mechanic Dean and see how many.
Probably so many.
Hold please while I search stuff. Mechanic Dean Winchester comes up with 1,756 results. Just that tag.
Because we know what we're about.
And that's assuming that people have tags.
Oh boy. Because like one of Dean's character traits is that he works with his hands and he's very good at it.
It's one of the only things, especially in the first two seasons, that Dean cares about aside from hunting. Like, it is one of his only other interests besides hunting and sex.
He's a simple man.
This is where the first time we recorded this, I had a whole segment on dramas where I went over some dramas that had gone down over the last 6 to 9 months while we've been recording season 2. I just thought it would be fun since Meredith has very little like real-time contact with the fandom. But the truth is that it just was not that fun to listen to. It wasn't that interesting when the audio came back, and I just decided that we should not do that. I love the people that I've met in this fandom. I love making content for my fellow fans, but at the end of the day, this show is my escape from reality. It will continue to be that for me. I care more about being able to talk about the actual show than about like fandom drama of any kind.
Reality can be very exhausting.
And I think this fandom as a general rule could stand to just be nicer to each other. Like, I think there is a lot to be said for just being kind even when other people maybe aren't kind to you, and just accepting that there's a difference of opinion. Obviously, there are some things that you do need to stand up for yourself or for on principle. For example, biphobia and homophobia has been a big topic in the fandom over the last like year, especially. It always kind of has been, but you know, there's been a big uptick in that kind of conversation since about April of 2022, and we just don't need to like have that in our space, and I don't want it. I will speak on that like in the moment if I see it, and don't bring it into any of our podcasting space, but like I don't need to go through all of these like individual dramas. I just want to talk about the show.
Yeah, that's the thing that unites us, and it's why we're here.
Speaking of the fandom, we have some listener questions that we're gonna answer. So first from Jen at Rupert Gaze. One of the things that Jen is curious about off the bat is what inspired you to start the podcast? Was this a knee-jerk, I need to do this, or was it a slow build that happened over a period of time? And the answer is a little bit of both. It was something I had thought about doing before, and I had joked about doing before. I had my first podcast series of opinions, and we did a series of episodes where Faith, Moyer, and I each picked a show where we would pick an episode for the other two to watch for the first time. We had never seen the show before, and I picked Supernatural, so they both started Supernatural because of that. And so we had started to talk about Supernatural when we recorded, like, so much.
Indoctrinate them early.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, like, we need to not talk about Supernatural on this not Supernatural podcast all the time. And so I was kind of thinking about it, and then I watched season 15 in 2 days, and I finished at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I like closed my computer and I went, I'm starting a podcast.
I have to rant.
And I spent 2 days in kind of like a, I don't know, fevered state, coming up with discussion topic ideas and podcast like format and, you know, talking to friends. And, you know, eventually I was like annoyed at Meredith enough that Meredith was like, yes, I will do this every week.
You didn't annoy me that much. I was just like, I was mostly like, actually, this sounds like it'd be fun. And I realized I could actually talk about this show that I haven't really watched in a while.
Meredith started rewatching Supernatural, and it's been great.
Yeah,
here we are, fun. 2 seasons in.
No regrets.
Other Jen, at Jen_Dream Team, asks, I want to know if you have one ideal guest that you would love to have come on and give their opinions, who would it be? Like, who is somebody's opinions you enjoy hearing, basically? Meredith, is there anyone that you would like really like to have on, either like cast or fandom? I know you don't know a lot of fandom people, so is there like a cast member you'd like to have in an ideal world that you just like really like to talk to?
Part of me wants to drag Eric Kripke on here and just make him explain some of his weirder decisions.
That is a better answer than basically anything I was thinking of. Eric Kripke, come on the pod, please. I really want to know why you hated the Roadhouse so much.
I have questions, sir. And, oh my gosh, you're a strange man.
I promise I'll ask you like things about how like smart and brilliant you are as well, but like...
And I promise I'll gush about Timeless because that was actually a great show.
But I also have some questions.
Explain yourself.
And then for me, it's kind of happening this season 3. It's actually going to be out next week when we do our first discussion episode of season 3. I really wanted to have Burke at Icarus Pendragon on the podcast, and that's happening next week. It's already recorded. It's really fun. We have a conversation about fandom.
That was so much fun to record. I loved it.
Yeah, if I could have someone from the cast on, it would probably be maybe like Kim Rhodes, I think, or like Brianna Buckmaster, just like someone who's like been on for a while and like periodically. Also, I have big crushes on both of them, so I want to have them to myself for like an hour.
Actually, I want them to be on here too, just so I can watch you fangirl.
I have no idea. Like, I would have to like ask like friend of the pod Moira to edit, like my co-host from Series of Opinions. I don't think I could edit myself in that situation.
I don't think you could edit them either. You'd be like, no, every single word they have is very valuable.
JJ at Priestley67 asked, I'm curious about this with everyone with podcasts, like what drives someone to review a show with 15 seasons? In my case, it was because I wrote a book and decided to say it instead. And JJ's podcast is Malik Radio, and he does this like supernatural, Jewish supernatural stuff. It's really cool. It's really fun. I'm learning so much.
I'll bet. Judaism is a really cool religion.
Yeah, I am making a lot of friends in JJ's supernatural like Discord, and like I'm the only like not Jewish person in there, so I am just like a little bit in over my head, but in a good way, where I'm learning stuff. This is kind of the same answer as Jen's question about how the podcast started, but it really was that I thought I had something to say about every single episode, and that is very much true. And all the time I think of other things that I didn't say when we record. Like when I'm editing, I think of things I was like, oh, I wish we talked about this. Or when I listen to someone else's supernatural podcast and they say something I hadn't thought of, like it's wild how much there is to say about the show. The fact that there is 15 seasons makes there so much to say.
Yeah, and it goes through several different phases, I'm going to say. And there are many different components of it that make it like a very weird show, but that just makes it even easier to discuss.
There are so many things about Supernatural that are accidentally good that it, like, I think that might be it too. But like the very specific inciting incident for me was, and spoilers ahead if you haven't watched the full show, you might just want to skip ahead like 30-ish seconds, which was the episode where Chuck is introduced, is season 4, episode 18, The Monster at the End of This Book. And like having Chuck be the season final villain was just like, I was like, I need to talk about this for 800 years. And I said it aloud about 8 years. Instead.
Yeah, because there's a higher chance that you'll live that long instead of 800.
Yes. And then we have a second question from Jen at Rupert Gaze, which is, what lessons have you learned over a year of podcasting? Any tips or things that surprised you or things that you wish you knew when you were starting? Meredith, how about you? Because like you had only like come on like as a guest on my like other podcast like one time before we did this.
Yes, I have better experience with carrying conversations with strangers.
Yeah, it's been amazing to meet so many new people.
Yeah, and like I'm kind of a socially awkward person. I don't know if you noticed. It's definitely more so in high school. But yeah, conversations have been something I've had to learn. And so every time I have a conversation with someone, it's like playing a game. Like every time I say something, it's my move.
That is such a neurodivergent thing that you just said.
Exactly. No, I'm not naturally good at this, but I'm doing my... Yeah,
for me, it's that, like, I used to think that editing was, like, the most time-consuming part, and it definitely is, but scheduling is the most time-consuming. It's the most energy, I would say, because, like, editing editing. Like I'm editing. I know what I'm doing. Like I'm by myself and I'm just like at home doing my thing. I've been editing for about 2 years now. And I am learning things all the time about how to do that better because I'm completely self-taught. But scheduling new guests every week is so much work. No one has a free minute. And to organize a bunch of people who don't know each other and who are on very different schedules and sometimes who live in different time zones is a lot of work. And I've, implemented some new tools over this season, particularly to do that better. But it's hard. I would say doing a podcast, it takes a lot of work. But if you are like